thing that I would say is when you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, and your life is just to live your life inside of your world, trying not to bash into a wall too much, trying to have a nice family life, have fun, saving a little money. But that's a very limited life. Life can be much broader. Once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything is around you that you call life was made up by people who were not smarter than you. And you can change it, you can mold it, you can build your own things that the other people can use. And the minute you understand that you can poke light, if you're pushing something and something will pop out the other side, then you can change it, you can mold it. And that's maybe the most important thing, is to shake off this erroneous notion that life is there and you just need to live in it, versus embrace it, change it, improve it, make your mark upon it. So I think that's the most important thing. And how will you learn that? Once you learn it, you'll wanna change life and make it better, because kind of mess up in a lot of ways. So how will you learn that? You'll never be the same again. Now I've totally always found something that to be very true, which is most people never get those experiences because they never ask. I never found anybody who didn't want to help me if I asked them for help. I always called them up. I called Bill Hibble when I was 12 years old. Just off limit, but he lived in Palo Alto, and his number was still in the phone book. He answered the phone himself, and I said, "Hello, I'm Steve Jobs. I'm a student in a high school. I'm 12 years old, and I want to build a frequency counter. And I was wondering if you had any spare parts I would have." And he laughed, and he gave me the spare parts to build this frequency counter. And he gave me a job that summer in HP, working in the assembly line, putting nuts and bolts together on frequency counters. And he gave me a job that summer, and I was in heaven. And I never found anyone who said no or hung up the phone when I called. I just asked. And when people ask me, I'm trying to be responsive to pay that debt gratitude back. And most people never pick up the phone and call. Most people never ask. And that's what separates sometimes people that do things from people just dream about it. You gotta act. You gotta be willing to crash and burn. You gotta be willing to fail. With the people on the phone, we're starting a company, with whatever you are afraid of failing, you won't get very far. There is no risk. That's why you need to do it when you're young. That's why we start Apple. We say we had absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain. I was 20 years old at the time, was 24, 25. In that time, we had no families, no children, no houses. We had an car, and I had a Volkswagen van, and all we are gonna lose is our cars and the shirts of our backs. And we had nothing to lose and everything to gain. And we figured, even if we crash and burn and lose everything, the experience will have been worth 10 times the cost. So what did we have to lose? There was no risk. And that's, I think that's a very healthy way to look at it. Well, somebody says, well, you could have gone to college, but some people say, well, you could have gone to college. You can go to college and be a lawyer. Well, let's say that's right, but you can go to college and be a lawyer when you're 25. There's nothing that stops you from doing that. You really, the only thing that really have in your life, the only thing that you really have in your life is time. And if you invest that time in yourself to have great experiences that are going to enrich you, then you can't possibly lose. So I always advise people, don't wait. Do something. Start to do something when you're young, when you have nothing to lose, and keep that in mind. And I think that's the best way to do it. Not that people can't start companies when they're 50. I've seen it. Very successful companies, but it's a lot easier when you're young and you don't have nothing to lose and don't have the responsibilities to other people that you will acquire later on in your life. There is an entrepreneurial risk culture in the Valley that is as important to it is as the key reason why Silicon Valley exists. As any other reason, the primary reason are the entrepreneurial risk culture, the role models, which role models are a too big part. And the second is universities, Stanford and Berkeley. There will be Silicon Valley if they weren't constantly bringing human capital, which decide to stay here because it's so nice. And the third, certainly for the number of companies that start here, is the financial infrastructure as well. And the fourth is the Beehive Effect. Well, you got a lot of extraordinary talented people, and the Beehive Effect says that it's a lot more efficient to have the talent in all those companies together. And let me give you one example. When you start a company, you need to hire some experienced talent. You just can't hire people out of the school most of the time. Then you need to hire some experienced talent. Well, you're gonna ask somebody to leave a job, maybe they have a family and come to your place to work. Well, if your company is in Montana and they move their families and your company fails, there is not another company in Montana where they can go to work for most likely, so they have to move again. As if you all you have to do is convince them to turn left instead of right down the road to the work in the morning, but they keep their same houses, their kids don't have to change school, etc. And if your company fails, well, just get a job on another week at some another company. You have much higher probabilities to recruit them. So that's the Beehive Effect, and all those four things together, I think that's why Silicon Valley exists is today. That's what it is. That's what it is. The entrepreneurial risk culture has a lot to do with role models, starting off with Hewlett Packard, and models of engineers starting companies, and models of marketing people starting their companies, and and even the failures, some of the spectacular failures, some of the failures that widely discussed, as well as the successes. Even the failures, people are admired for trying. And I think they pick themselves so often. Go get a job. Maybe they are not the owner of the company, they are not the founder of the next company, but they got a really good job, and there's no real chance they end up destitute. Apple was a very classic Silicon Valley company, in the sense that Steve Wozniak and my partner both worked for Hewlett Packard. As a matter of fact, was still working there when we started Apple. And Hewlett Packard was the genesis of not just the concept that you could start your own company, but of course it was the primary role model in the Valley. But also it was the ethics or the ethical basis of how you want to build your own company. A company that was based on values, not just based on making money. And the HP had the HP way. And they had a list of the values, and the first one was, we need to make some profit or else we can keep this company going. But after that, they go into how they want to treat individuals and conduct their corporate life, and it was very idealistic in my opinion. So we were very much influenced by that. The second thing that made us very typical in a way was that we were building a product that we wanted ourselves. We were building a product that we wanted ourselves, just like Hewlett Packard started building test equipment for engineers. Well, they were engineers, so they could, in essence, do the marketing of that product. They could figure out what an engineer might want in a product, as well as the designing. We wanted a computer, and we knew exactly what we wanted in a computer. So we could do the marketing as well as the engineering of that product. this changed later as we started selling to people who were different than us, but certainly the first several years of Apple, we were selling to people who were just like us. And a lot of companies in Silicon Valley started in that way. I don't think it will be like that because I tell myself, all the work I have done, it's a very strange business, very strange endeavor of life. All the work that I have done in my life will be obsolete by the time, when I'm 50. I mean, Apple II it's obsolete now. Apple ones were obsolete many years ago. The Macintosh in a version becoming obsolete the next few years. This is a field where one does not write with the Principia, which holds up that for 200 years. This is a field where one paints a painting that will be looked at for centuries, or build a church that will be admired, look at in astonishment for centuries. Now, this is a field where one does work, and in 10 years is obsolete and really not be useful in 10 or 20 years. I mean, you can go back and use an Apple One because there's not software for it, and in another 10 years or so you won't be able to use it. And an Apple II, you won't be able to fire it up and see what it was like. So it's sort of like sedimentary rock. You're building a mountain and you get to contribute your little layer of sedimentary rock to make that mountain much higher, but no one in the surface will, unless they have X-ray vision, will just see your sedimentary rock. They stand on it, and it will be appreciated by that rare geologist, but no, it's not like Renaissance rock. It's very different. One of the things that Woz and I did was build blue boxes. Although these are obsolete now, but they were the best devices that you could build. When you make a long distance phone calls in the background, those are telephone computers actually signaling each other and sending information to each other to set up your call. And the signaling they use is a lot like touch-tone phones, only it's different frequencies. Well, you could make a box that emits those tones, those frequencies, and there used to be a way to fool the entire telephone system into thinking you were a telephone computer and to open up itself and let you call anywhere in the world for free. As a matter of fact, you could call from the payphone, go to High Plains in New York, take a satellite to Europe, take a cable to Turkey, come back to Los Angeles, and go around the world 3 or 4 times and call in the payphone the next door, counting the phone, be about 30 seconds, and come out in the other end of the other phone. So, and this is where legal, I have to add. But in spite of that, we were fascinated by them. That Woz and I actually figured out how to build the best one digital blue box in the world, and we will give them to our friends and keep it to ourselves. You rapidly run out of people you want to call. But it was the magic of the fact that 2 teenagers can build this box for $100 worth for the parts and control hundreds of billions of dollars in infrastructure in the entire telephone network in the whole world. From Los Altos in Cupertino, California. That was magical. And experiences like that taught us the power of ideas, the power of understanding that you could build this box. You could control hundreds of millions of dollars worth in telephone infrastructure around the world. That was a powerful thing, and that if we hadn't made those blue boxes, there will never be if we hadn't made those blue boxes, there will be no Apple, because not only not had the confidence that we could build something and make it work, because it took us 6 months in discovering how to build this. It was a tremendous process in itself, but it was also the sense of magic that we could sort of influence the world, controlling in the case of blue boxes, but something much more powerful than controlling, influencing in the case of Apple, and they were very closely related. I really do feel if we hadn't had those blue box experiences, there will never be an Apple computer. You want to know what was happening in the next 5 years, you don't look in the mainstream, you look in the fringe. And the Fringe was back in 1975, was the Homebrew Computer Club, and it was a bunch of people that were in this area build their own computers because they couldn't afford to buy their computers, because computers were $100,000, $50,000, and they couldn't afford that.